Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Andrea Valle. I'm product manager for FCS Express. And today in this webinar, I want to show you a few new things that we introduced in 7.26 and 7.28. 7.28 has been released like a couple of weeks ago on October 29. So if you didn't update yet, then feel free to navigate on our website and download it. So I wanna go directly to the topic of today. So you see, this is the path that we underwent to develop 726 and 728. There are a bunch of new features, a bunch of new usability improvement, as you can see here. Um, we don't have time to go through all of them, so I just highlighted a few of them in bold. So for example, I will show you a little bit about axis customization, a few simplification about batch processing, sliders to adjust compensation directly on plot, integration with Easy Panel, um, quite a lot of UI, I will not say improvement because UI is mainly like aesthetics. So you will see a new skin of FCS Express included dark mode. Then we have now the ability to open gated plot using double click on top of the conventional drag and drop FCS Express way of doing that. And at the end, I also want to show you what we've done in terms of percentile tokens. And I want to show you a couple of examples in which this can turn to be very useful. We also introduce a few speed updates, especially for those of you who deal with a lot of files. When I mean a lot, I mean like hundreds or like 1,000 of files in the data list. So we did some tests, and with 728, if you have a layout with such amount of files, so you won't see really an improvement if you are dealing with like one or two or 10. But with a lot of data files, we saw improvement that ranges between like 5 and 40 times speed improvement. So it's a very cool stuff. Okay, well, I didn't mention, if you have any question, feel free to type in either in the chat or in the question and answer dialog of Zoom. I will keep an eye on my second screen on both dialogues, so no worry, I will answer either in real time or right after the webinar. So first of all, user interface. So we modernize, and something that it's really important to me, simplify to make it more user-friendly, the startup screen. And I will show you. We modernize the UI. We make it now in line with the most recent Microsoft Office style. We introduce different modes in terms of like color palette for the for FCS Express. So the colorful mode is the classic one, and then we have light and dark modes. And last but not least, again, in terms of user interface, we did a lot of improvement in terms of usability to the right-click menu for plot. So we really saw that a lot of people heavily rely on right-click menus, especially on plots, and they do a lot of stuff through right-click menu. So we wanted to make the right-click menu functionality more user-friendly, more accessible, and easier to navigate. So modernize and simplify startup screen. So what you see here on the left has been the startup screen since quite a long time, even before version 7. So we started with the startup screen, if I'm not wrong, since version 5, but definitely since version 6. So now the startup screen looks like this. So we have a list of most recent layouts, which is really handy because before, with the old startup screen, you could only access the latest 4. So now all the recent layout that you could access before within FCS Express now are also accessible in the startup screen. And you cannot see it in this screenshot, but I can show you later on. You can also right click on any of those recent layout and you can pin it. So if you have a template, for example, that you use very frequently, then you can pin it and it will stay at the top. Then we drastically reduce the number of buttons that you see. So now it's really easy to get started. And this, again, it thanks to like feedback from user and usability study and interviews that we do regularly with users. So you see, we can create new layout, open a layout. You can check updates, okay? And then you can access the help content. With help, I mean the manual, the tutorial, you can get in touch with us. So this is all through this button. And last but not least, quite a bunch of you actually ask us why I can't like access the user option directly from the startup screen, why I have to launch a layout. So especially for license administrators, this may be really useful. So if you want to change option, for example, and if you are a license administrator on a site license or an internet dongle, close to this option button, you will also be able to manage users. So adding user, removing users. So it's a quite faster than before. So you don't need to launch any layout at all. Then, when I say that the new UI is closer to the current Microsoft Office style, you see there is nothing really dramatic. But if you carefully look at the ribbon bar now, the ribbon bar has white background. The tab are still there. It's just different the way the tab are highlighted when you click on them. And we try to make the UI a little bit like cleaner. You can see here dialog used to have like a header and a toolbar with some shade, in this case light blue. Now it's like flat gray. And this also come into play with dark mode. So it's very cleaner interface. So we try to make things as simple as possible, also visually and graphically. So I mentioned the three modes that we have. So the classical one for FCS Express, it's called colorful mode. And then we have the light and the dark mode. So by default, when you install 728, FCS Express will launch using the mode selected in your operative system. So for example, my Windows is set to dark mode. So FCS Express will automatically use dark mode. But no worry, you can go into your user options. I will show you and change. So if you are using like a light mode in Windows, you can still use colorful or dark and vice versa. If you're using dark, you can still use colorful or light in FCS Express. Okay, the last one about the user interface, so the last improvement, it's about the right-click menu. So on the left, you can see the right-click menu in 724. You can see it was like pretty big, a lot of different entries, like almost 30, I think, or almost 20 or more than 20, and no icons. So what you see on the right, this is the new right-click menu. Again, because we saw that really a lot of users really like the right-click menu and do stuff with the right-click menu. But it was a little bit like hard to navigate. So now we group a little bit the entries. So for example, you see here we had create gate, show gate, activate gate. So now they are all under gate with a little nice icon. And the same has been done for many other entries here. Then you see the result is that, first of all, you have less entry, and with the icons, it's really now easy and quick to find what you need. Also, the format entry here, so the first choice at the top, which was used to format a plot. By default, it used to open the formatting dialog default to the axis category. But what about if you wanted to customize the title? Or what about if you wanted to customize the legend? Or anyway, something which was not the axis. So what we've done was changing this and make it expandable. So now you see there is a second level menu. So those options are the same that you can see in the formatting tab in the ribbon. And they also have icons. We also added the change plot type, which was the only formatting option that wasn't available at all through the right-click menu. So now you can also change plot type via right-click. So why I use screenshots to show you this? Because the next part of my presentation will use FCS Express in real time, as we usually do during webinars. So you will see all those stuff. You will see the dark mode, you will see the new ribbon bar, you will see the right-click menu, and so on. And also the startup script, of course. So next chapter. How about plots? Those are the three improvements that I wanted to underline in 2628 as compared to the previous version. So first of all, this is a very big improvement in terms of usability. So simplifying axis customization. And I want to show you. I want to show you what you were used to do in old versions of FCS Express and how you can do it now in 728. Then the ability to open new plot with double click on top, in addition to doing this with drag and drop. And finally, regarding plots interaction, the ability to change compensation directly on plots using sliders. So I want to open I want to open a layout and I want to use the old version of FCS Express. So in this case, I'm using 722, but you can also do the same using 724, for example. So, okay. So this is the old version of FCS Express. In this case, it's 722. As an example of let's say, customization of the minimum and maximum value for the axis, I took this data set. This is actually a Cytoflex data set. And I opened three plots. Okay. On the left, you can see the plot that I won't touch, I won't customize, so I won't make any change to this plot. But anyway, this is the same data showed in three plots, identical plots. And why I choose this example? Because like Cytoflex, also DXFlex, are very, let's say, it's very likely that you want to change the minimum and maximum, especially on scatters. And the reason for this is that these instruments save data with a very high dynamic range. For example, in this case, this instrument, I'm just opening the header. So you see the last channel, it's set to 8 million, okay, for basically every parameter in this file, 8 million. But you can see from the plot that, so this is 3 million, for example. So most of the data, and I'm speaking about scatters because you won't see this issue, this white empty space for fluorescency. So for parameters that are non-linearly scaled, but for linearly scaled parameters, so scatters, you will see a lot of white space. And the reason is that, yes, the instruments save like 8 million of channels, but then you can see the data are like pretty concentrated in a small range. In this case, it's probably like 500,000 on the x-axis and probably 1 million, let's say, on the y-axis. So FCS Express by default in the instrument-specific setting try to limit the white space, and indeed you see that the maximum in this case it's set to 6,200,000 and 3,100,000 on the x-axis, but still there is a lot of white space and you might want to zoom in, let's say. So why I have those two plots? So in the previous releases of FCS Express, you had two options, and this was a little bit was sometimes a source of confusion we notice among users. So two ways in which you could change the minimum and maximum. The first way, which is the way that it's the best one, was changing what in FCS Express is called min-max resolution. And this could be done via right click. You see magnify resolution, okay? And then you can drag and drop and highlight the portion of the plot. And this is the result. So the plot looks really nice. You have a good resolution. You can see perfectly outliers. You can see all the data nicely. Then, if you don't want to use the right click, the same things could be done through format specific options. And you can see here. So minimum and maximum for the X and for the Y. If you use this dialog, then you can type in. So, but it's exactly the same that we have done using right-click magnify resolution. So the advantage of typing in is that you can choose like rounded value, like 0, 500,000 on the X, and let's say 0 and 1 million. Okay? So the second way, which is, let's say, the way that I usually don't suggest doing using in the previous version of FCS Express, was right-click magnify axis instead of resolution. Okay, so you can use it in the same way, but you can see the results, although correct, it's, let's say, aesthetically not really appealing. It's blurred. Okay. And unfortunately, this was what a lot of users used to do only because this option, so changing right-click magnify axis instead of resolution, was very easily available through the axis category, which is really intuitive, going to the axis if you want to change the min-max. So let me set it the same way as we did for the plot on the left. So you will see that even if you set it in exactly the same way, the blur effect will be really clear. Okay, 500,000 on the X, 1 million on the Y. So what we have done in FCS Express 28 was consolidating those two options, and we basically moved the min-max resolution from this quite hidden section of the formatting dialog, so the specific option. We moved it under axis. So it will be very accessible. And we actually get rid of the range, which is the one causing the blurred effect. So in 728, you will no longer have this dichotomy. Every time you will go to axis and you will change the min-max resolution, the min-max, it will change the min-max resolution. So it will change it the right way. So let me now save this, okay? And let me close, and let me now move to the new version of FCS Express to see how it differs with this regard. So let's close this one, and let's open FCS Express 728. It's on my screen. Okay. So you see I'm using dark mode. This is the startup script using dark mode, exactly as I showed you in my slide. First of all, this is the latest layout that I opened. So the one that I just used in the previous version of FCS Express, the old one. Just want to show you that you can right click and you can open the file location, which is really useful if you don't remember where it's located, and you can pin pin to the list. So this will stay on top. And then, as I mentioned, you have the option to create new layout, open, update, help options, which was not accessible in the previous version. And I immediately want to show you how to control the dark mode, if you like. So you don't need to open a new layout if you want to open the layout, the user options, and you will notice a new category here, appearance. So you have colorful, dark, light mode, And as I mentioned, by default, we are using the system setting. So my Windows, it's set to dark, and this is why FCS Express, it's also set to dark. But anyway, just click on any of the other one to switch. I like dark mode, so I will keep dark mode. To open a layout that you see here in the list, just click on the layout. You see the mouse becomes a little hands. So, and it's on my other screen. Here we go. Okay. So this is the layout that I saved with the old version of FCS Express. And now I'm going to tell you why. So first of all, if you create a new plot in the version of FCS Express that I'm using now, so 728, you will notice, and this is the new right-click menu, that there is only one option, okay? There is no more confusion about magnifying axis, magnify resolution. There is only one option, which is the right one, okay? You see magnifying axis. I can do this, and I look the data, and they look perfect, and also aesthetically appealing. Then, if you go to the specific option category here, you will no longer see the min-max resolution because we moved it under axis, and it's now here. So we replaced the range, which was the one creating the blur effect, with the resolution that has been moved from the specific option. So nowadays, like, it's really easy peasy. You can just go to the axis, and that's the intuitive category if you want to change the min max, and just act on this value if you like. So if you want to set it to rounded value, as we did before, 0 and 1 million, and on the X, let's say 0 and 500,000. You see, it's exactly the same results, but now it's simpler. So there is no confusion. What happened if you changed the min-max resolution in a previous layout? Well, and now you're opening that layout in the new version of FCS Express. Well, nothing changed. It's still the min-max resolution. We just moved it from the specific option under axis. So this plot in the middle, we customized it together like 2 minutes ago. We set the x-axis to 0, 500,000, the y-axis to 0 to 1 million, and it's still 0 to 1, 0, 500,000, 0 to 1 million. So again, no action at all. What happened if instead you change the range, okay, in a previous version of FCS Express where the range was still available and you have the blur effect? So you can either keep it as it is, of course. If you don't bother about the blur effect, then it's totally fine. Statistics are still correct, and everything is correct. It's just an aesthetical, let's say, option. But if you want, if you go to axis, okay, you have now those two options, okay, and this little paragraph that explain you what happened to this plot. So as you can see here, I will keep it here if you want to read it. So the y-axis on this plot has been previously changed by setting the minimum range to 0 and the maximum range to 1 million. And this was actually causing the blur effect. And I have these two options. I can basically discard those changes, or I can migrate those values, 0 to 1 million, to the resolution. So if I do this, so on the Y and on the X, now I can basically reset the min-max resolution with those two values, and the plot looks very nice. So again, you don't need to do anything at all if you're using 728 and you want to change the min-max on axis on new plots. If it happened that you're dealing with plot that has been changed in the past with the range, then you have the options to restore and to migrate those values to the new setting. Otherwise, again, keep it as it is if you're not bothered by the blur effect. Okay, so let me close this and let me go back to my presentation. So here we have ability to open new plot via double click and ability to change compensation using slider directly on plot. So I can show you this in a single layout. So here I have a plot, I have a gate. So what we used to do, what we all used to do to open a new plot, for example, gated on cells, was using drag and drop. So you drag this gate out, you drop it, and now you have a new plot gated on cells. So what we have done is enabling double click now. So if you double click within the gate shape, like I'm doing now I have a new plot, okay? So same results, just a different way to do this. Also, and let me show you, if you go here, I want to show you this. If you go to your user options, this is a trick that might be useful. Under general, so the very first category that you see, if you scroll down, you see here, you can define where to place duplicated object. And if your user options, like mine, are set to the same as the original, it means that the new plot, as you have seen like a few seconds ago, almost overlap with the old one, with the original plot. I really like setting these to the right, okay? Now, if I double click on the gate, the new plot will be automatically at the right. So I can, for example, moving on and maybe create another gate, let's say C3, okay? And after double clicking, you see I have another plot, and they are perfectly aligned and equally spaced, homogeneously spaced. So this might be useful if you wanna, if you want to easily organize and align plots. Of course, now the fourth one. So if I double click again, it's here. So well, I can move it down, but then I will keep going to the right. So they will still be aligned. And another thing that I want to show you now that we have a few plots here is, let me open a bunch of parameters. Let's say, okay, we can use this plot. So a couple of versions ago, we introduced sliders to change the axis scale. And if you didn't see this feature, then might be a good opportunity for me to refresh. So you see, right click on a plot, you have show axis scale adjustment slider. Okay, these sliders are the one that allows you to change, you can see here, the scale. Okay, this is useful for example, be exponential. It's useful for hyperlog and so on. So hybrid scale. But now, on top of these scale adjustment slider, we also have compensation adjustment slider. You see here. It's more or less in the middle. It's in the same position as we used to keep the compensation options in the old right-click menu. Here you see only one compensation matrix. Why? Because I only have one data set. But if you right-click on a plot where you have multiple data sets, like plots with multiple overlays, then this will be a list of compensation. So you can select which one to modify. In this case, I only have one. And now you can see I can move these and tweak my compensation. Okay. Again, you might have noticed that we have now this warning message in case cells are like below or above the axis. So it's really useful. The threshold by default is 5%. So if there are more than 5% that are hidden, like outside of the plot, then you will see this message. But anyway, regarding these sliders, you can see it's really easy. You can act on the sliders. If you click on the sliders, then you can also, I'm clicking on the up arrow on my keyboards. Okay, you can go up and down. That also useful. You can type in, so let's say these 5, okay, or like 25. You can, of course, you can also type in decimals. You can also click on the spin edits here, okay? And we have the restore button. So the restore button restore the state of those compensation to the state that was before opening this dialog, okay? So now if I click restore, it will go back to the initial state. So this means, for example, that if I do this, let's do something very evident. Okay, if I close, okay, this is the new state. So if you want to go back and do other changes, okay, like this, restore will restore to the previous state, which is this one. So it's always one step back. If you want to go like back, really back, then remember that you have like undo. So I can undo, and click, and you see I'm still undoing. So undo is really powerful with these regards. And again, if you have, oh, well, there is a question. Why are we making it easier for people to manually adjust their compensation metrics? I'm happy you asked this question because I also think that like changing the transforming and changing the distribution of the data by manually adjusting shouldn't be done. We actually have the compensation and mixing dialog where you can calculate the compensation metrics with the single stage control in an automatic way. However, I can tell you that especially when I participate to like training or flow courses with people that are new to flow cytometry. If you want to like um, explain them how compensation works, the fact that you can move up and down the sliders, it's really useful in that case. Like literally to show them that like increasing the percentage of the compensation move the population down or to the left and so on. Then in the practice, I totally agree with you. So I won't do it, and I will. If there is anything wrong with the compensation, it's because either the sample or the control or the fluorochrome or the staining has not been done properly. So yeah, I think we are on the same page. Thanks for asking. And let me go back here. Okay, so this was about the plots interaction. So interacting with plot, again, axis customization. Now it's super straightforward. Only one option, which is the right one, no blur effect. Open new plot via double click, and then slider to adjust the compensation. Again, this is quite useful to me when I have to explain what are compensation to someone that doesn't know how they works. But then in the real practice, always do automatic compensation, especially if you have like a lot of color. So it will be the best. What about batch processing? So we did two things in this new release. First of all, we consolidate two buttons in the ribbon bar here, run and rerun. I'm not sure how many of you used run and rerun. Probably most of you only use run. And but for those of you who were habit to use one or the other one, I want to go a little bit more in depth, and you will see why this is a quite nice simplification. And the second point is the new skin of the batch dialog. So the batch dialog, which is this one, was a kind of like a typical dialog in FCS Express. So this dialog organization was really unique to the batch dialog. So every other dialog was pretty different. And I mean, every other dialog was consistent. So the only difference was in the batch and export. So what we have done, and you can see it here, okay, we made the batch and action dialog like inline and similar to every other dialog in FCS Express. So it's similar to the compensation, to the unmixing, to the transformation dialog, to the SOP dialog, to the custom token dialog. So you can see you can add new action here, okay, with this drop-down menu. And we also organize them in a pretty easy way. So it's easy to navigate. For example, instead of having internal spreadsheet, export to Excel, and so on, they are grouped here under Excel and so on. So same for Prism. Instead of having like X and Y grouped and column table, now those are under the Prism entry. So what about the run and rerun? So let me go here. Okay, and let me delete this compensation. Let's go back to the correct one. So we have an option which is called apply iteration snapshot. Apply iteration snapshot is an option and was there also, like it's there since years. Okay, and apply iteration snapshot, it's a way to make gates, quadrants, and marker to place them in a different position between iterations. So if I use apply iteration snapshot, so I click this, and now I'm in the apply iteration snapshot mode, I can change this gate, I can move this one, and so on. And if I move to the next iteration, then I can do the same without affecting the first one. So if I go back to the first one, or if I go down to the second one, you see. So it's a kind of similar feature to the data specific gate that you might know. So under gating, data specific gate, this is specific for iteration instead of FCS file. So data specific gate is specific for each FCS file. So if you have panels, for example, multiple tube, apply iteration snapshot apply to the entire panel, not to a single file. But anyway, so I'm using apply iteration snapshot. In the previous version of FCS Express, we used to have two buttons, run and rerun. There was a little bit of confusion around those two buttons because run used to never apply snapshot, even if this button was pressed, while rerun used to always apply snapshot, even if this button was not pressed. So it was a little bit counterintuitive. If you were using snapshot and then you clicked on run, the risk was to lose all the snapshots. So what we've done was removing the rerun button and make the run buttons smarter. So now the run button use snapshot if apply iteration snapshot is pressed. Otherwise, it doesn't. So if you don't press apply iteration snapshot, run won't use apply iteration snapshot. So everything is controlled by this button now. You don't have to pay attention about whether this button is pressed and which button between run and rerun you press. So now I've pressed apply iteration snapshot. It means that if I click on run, let me create an export. So this is the new best dialog, by the way. You see the Excel, you see the Prism, okay? Let's save to PDF. Let's save in my folder, combine, everything else is the same. And now let me click on run, okay? With the apply iteration snapshot pressed, run will apply snapshot automatically. So in my PDF, you will see the position of the gates being different between the first two iterations. And here we go. So this is iteration 1, this is iteration 2 and 3. So let me do it again. This is 1, this is 2. You see, apply iteration snapshot. Now, let me go back. If I depress the apply iteration snapshot button, I will see a message saying that snapshot will no longer be applied, and I say yes. So now this gate will be applied, and this gate will be used for all the sample, either if I do it manually, you see, or if I click on run. So now if I click on run, it will ask me to overwrite in this case. Overwrite, okay. And let's open it. You won't see any difference between gates in iteration 1 or 2. You see here 1 and 2. So again, only one button, which is run. Apply iteration snapshot. It's the only one controlling snapshots nowadays in 728. It's much, much easier. I see a question. How did the slider work with the Cytec Aurora spectral instrument? So if you create any compensation metrics on SpectroFlow, and this matrix is available in the unmixed, then those sliders will tweak the compensation metrics. If there is no compensation metrics coming from SpectroFlow, so if those are just like unmixed data, then you won't see any slider unless you create a compensation in FCS Express. So these only apply to compensation metrics, okay? You cannot manipulate the unmixing metrics. You can only manipulate the compensation metrics. Okay, so let me close and let me go back. Here we go. And feel free to ask any question you want. Okay, so we did a few new things about integration and like data compatibility with new instruments. You see here we integrated with EasyPanel. This is something that I really want to show you. We make FCS Express compatible with the Thermo Fisher Zenith data, spectral data. So just bring in spectral data from Zenith and that's it. So you will see conventional plot, you will see spectral plot, the spectrum plot. So absolutely like smooth. We already had compatibility with Sony and Novocyte, but this compatibility has been improved. So we tweaked the instrument-specific setting. And we also added support for the most recent Python version. So I won't show you an example, but anyway, just want to mention that you can run Python script. So I want to open the web page on our website. Okay, you see here, can FCS Express integrate Python? Here you have all the instruction on how to install, and here are a bunch of scripts that you can run. So mainly for high-dimensional data analysis, you can see here like Cytonorm for normalization, HDB scan for clustering, IVIS, OpenTSNE, PacMap, FATE, StreamMap, UMAP for dimensionality reduction, and so on. But anyway, we don't have time today. But now that I open the website, you might have noticed actually, and this is good to know, that we have a new skin also for the website. It's really cool. So let me go back here. What I want to show you is the EasyPanel integration. So let me open this one. So those are Cytec Aurora file. Okay. And what I've done was creating the unmixing metrics into FCS Express. So in this data, there are no compensation. So there is no compensation metrics coming from the instrument, and neither no compensation that I created on my own in FCS Express. So if you right click, going back to the question a few minutes ago, so you see there is no option here to show compensation on sliders because there is no compensation. But in this case, again, I created an unmixing matrix. I created an unmixing matrix. This is a 14 color. You can see here the unmixing matrix, 14 n members, plus in this case, just as an example, I measured also 3 autofluorescences. You see, I like call them AF1, AF2, AF3 very, very generally. If you have run compensation wizard or a mixing wizard, you know that when you create a new compensation or a mixing matrix, FCS Express create pages in the layout. And those pages usually include a scatter plot where you can set a gate around the population of interest, one or two histograms where you can define positive and negative population. And if you are using an external negative, you will only have one marker in this case. And for spectral data, if you're creating a mixing matrix, you will also see spectral plot for the positive and for the negative, sorry, for the negative and for the positive as a quality check, okay? If you see like extra spectra here, it means that there is probably like a cross-contamination from other tubes. So you might want to get rid of those contamination and like refine the gating or create new gates to identify the right spectrum. So now that we are on mixing, I see this question. When you plan to implement David Nova approach for cytometry? So the true unmixing, we are already working on this as you could imagine. So thanks for ask. It should be ready in 7:30, which is the upcoming version. So you might have noticed that FCS Express only has like 726, 728, 730. So we won't have a 729. So the next one is 730. And we expect to have it in the Q1 of 2026. So we will have it. Absolutely. Thanks for asking. So what I want to show you is that what you can do is send your mixing metrics to EasyPanel. And I have a couple of slides because I'm not sure whether all of you knows about EasyPanel. So EasyPanel is a platform that can help you mainly in two tasks. So the first one is designing your panel, especially if those are like big panel, okay? Like 20 color, 30 color, 15, 40 colors. And the beauty of this is that EasyPanel is so like smart that take into account the antigen expression, the dye available on the market or available in your fridge, okay, the antibody that you have in the lab already, or the antibody that are like overall available in the world. Take into consideration the instrument that you're using, the configuration of the instrument that you're using, and of course the spectral signature of all those dye, and find the best panel that you can create. So the second things that you can do with EasyPanel is once you have your panel, once you have run your single staining control and you have created your unmixing metrics in FCS Express, you can send this unmixing metrics to EasyPanel and validate it. So the question that you want to answer is, are the signatures, so the spectra that I see on my instrument for each of the fluorochrome that I'm using, do they match with the expected signature? So the signature that is expected for that fluorochrome on my instrument with my configuration. And this is a very great quality control. So EasyPanel, it's brand agnostic. So most of the time are the manufacturer that provide EasyPanel the instrument configuration, the list of reagent, and also the spectra that each manufacturer expect for each dye on each configuration of their instrument. So it's a really, really great quality check that you can do. So again, like creating panels and quality check the unmixing metrics based on the reference provided on the platform. So it's a circle actually, because as you can see here, you can use EasyPanel to create the panel, then you acquire your sample, you go to FCS Express, you create the unmixing metrics, and you send the unmixing metrics to EasyPanel again for quality control. And this is what I want to ask you, what I want to show you, sorry. So, okay, I see a question about the spectral plot. I will come back in a 2 minutes. So if you're here, this is my unmixing metrics. I click on the EasyPanel button. This will send the unmixing metrics together with the name of the machine. So EasyPanel recognize that this is a Cytec Aurora, a 3-laser Aurora, and so on. Aurora Northern Light 3-laser. This is the list of my 14 colors with the similarity. So the similarity is the similarity of the signature that I'm seeing on my instrument with this die. Okay, in this case, for example, let's use this one for V450 with this die against the expected signature, and this is just like 100% similar. So similarity goes between 0 and 1. Those are all perfect, basically, 0, 99, 99, 98. This one, it's pretty bad, okay? This is C4 BYG667. You see the expected is green, the actual, so the observed on my instrument with this die, with my staining, it's the red one, it's totally different. So the first thing that you can do in this case is going back to FCS Express and double check whether maybe you misplaced the gate or the marker. And this is exactly the case in this example. So this is BYG667, okay? The gate is okay, but you see, I misplaced this marker. So I will just check I will just set it to include the brightest population. And I can just go back and click again. So I'm sending these metrics again. So BYG667. Let's see how it looks now. BYG667. Okay. So it's basically matching completely, you see. So it's a really great QC. Um, the next thing that I want to show you is that, remember, I mentioned that we are measuring also 3 autofluorescences, okay? And here we have a tab with the 3 autofluorescences. So we are not sending these to match against a reference because there is no reference for autofluorescence because we all can use like tons of different like cells and treatments. So we're not doing this for matching with the reference. But the very cool things is that I can design a panel, another panel, okay? Or I can prove this one, considering those autofluorescences, okay? So if I do this, I can design a panel. I will do something very, very quick. So let's say human, let's say CD4 cells, and I would probably use like an existing kit just to do things a little bit simpler. Let's say, yeah, TH1, TH2. Okay, it's a very basic panel in this case. But the idea is that Easy Panel will try to create the panel excluding fluorochrome whose spectra is overlapping with the autofluorescences. So let's wait a few seconds. Okay. Okay. And now you will see the spectral signature of each of the fluorochrome. You see 3 autofluorescences, my 5 antibody, and you can see that my 3 autofluorescences specifically mainly emit in this region, and Easy Panel perfectly avoid adding dyes that emit in this region. So it prefers other dyes in this case. So again, it's a circle, as you can see here. So you can create the panel, run the unmixing together with autofluorescences, send the autofluorescence to Easy Panel, refine the panel, and or create a new one. So a question, a spectral signal depends on the instrument configuration and detector setup. They are obviously are not agnostic to the, no, I mean agnostic in term that they do not suggest you like, unless you ask to do that, they are not preferring any manufacturer. So if you have an instrument, you can set that instrument and that's it. BD Fact Discover. So I can feel free to send an email to the Easy Panel support if you want to see like specific instrument details. But most of the time are the manufacturer themselves that send the list of, let's say, reagent that they have, the list of spectra of those reagents on their machine, and the list of configuration. So in that sense, EasyPanel it's agnostic because it doesn't prefer any instrument or any manufacturer. And really, what I like, for example, is that you can tell EasyPanel to like preferentially select antibody and reagent that you already have in the lab. Okay. And if there is like no way to use them, then you can expand the search to any other manufacturer. Or you can also like preferentially select a manufacturer or preferentially like do not use a manufacturer if you don't like one of them. So it's really open. Regarding the question about how to make the spectral plot just a line, so I will take just this one just to show you. So by default, spectral plots are like a density spectral plot. If you go to format and you go to specific options, here we go. Instead of color, you can set color on gates and overlays. So those are all lines. And if you move to overlays, you can set to median or average. Here we go. If you want to make it nicer, under specific option, you can also interpolate. Here we go. And now you have a line. You can also add, for example, like the standard deviation if you like, and this is again under overlay. Okay, you can see here. So it's really up to you how to do this. Okay, let's see. Another question. No, that's done. Okay. So let me close. We are almost at the top of the hour, so I want to show you, to conclude, percentile token. So we used to have percentile token also in the past, but we couldn't use decimal points to percentile, to define a percentile. So how to use a percentile token and why it's really useful to have decimal. So in this layout, okay, you see I have 4 samples, each sample 4 iterations. Each iteration includes an FMO and a fully stained. What you might want to do is set the marker based on the FMO, okay, and then use the same position on the fully stained, for example. One way to do this is to, first of all, to link those markers. So I'm dragging and dropping the left boundary of the top marker to this one, okay, and now those markers are linked, you can see. So I can use the control, and this, I mean, in this case, I just like imagine to use FMO fully stained, but this can be like non-stimulated and stimulated and so on. But anyway, the idea is to use a control to set the marker. And the next step that you can do is instead of moving this marker manually, iteration between iteration, okay, you can format this marker, okay, the one on the control, and instead of defining fixed position, let's say, or a manually defined position, let me clear, and I will use a token. And as a statistics on this plot, yes, I will use a percentile. It can be like 99, I mean, whatever you want. It can be depending on the threshold on that you want to use. But what we could do in the past was only using integer number. So if this was 99, you couldn't set it to 99.9 or 99.5. Now you can. So if you want to do this, you can. Now this is set to the 99.5 percentile, and it will automatically update. You can see here. Okay, those are very small files, so because of the rounding, you might see like 51, 051, 052, and so on. But anyway, this is a great application. If you want, you can like also lock. So in this case, the left boundary of this marker won't be adjustable manually, only if you unlock it. And the second application of these, let me go to this layout, is using the percentile with decimals into the instrument-specific setting. And this might be really useful for data that come from Cytoflex or DXFlex. So remember, you know now that you can easily change the min max of this plot by right click, magnify axis, okay? But I don't want to do this every time I load a new data in a layout. So I want to do it through the instrument specific settings. So you go to File, Options, Data Loading, FCS File Option, Instrument Specific Setting. Those are all the instruments for which we already have a setting. If you see few of them, it's because you are still using like old user options. So I suggest you to go here, press Restore, and now you will see new instrument. For example, I mentioned the Zenith data, so the Zenith instrument. So you see we have two. So you don't have to select an instrument-specific setting if you want to use it. They are all available to FCS Express. So FCS Express automatically use the one that apply to the data. So this data comes from Cytoflex. The Cytoflex instrument-specific setting will be used. And among the many options that you have, you can see that scatter parameter, you can define the min-max resolution. And also for fluorescent parameter, you can define the min-max resolution. Now, for fluorescence parameter, you normally don't have to make any change. For scatter parameter, as I mentioned, FCS Express already tried to limit the white space, but it's still, most of the time, it's still too much. And now you can do the following. Let's say 99.5. I mean, you can choose whatever, 99, 99.9. It's up to you, but I just want to show you that this decimal really makes the difference. So click OK. Now I want to refresh this. Refresh. And this is automatically set to the 99.9, 99.5 percentile in this case, for the X and for the Y, independently. So it automatically show me the plot as I want without resizing. So the fluorescents are still like as scaled as usual. Okay, so we are close to the end. So I just want to mention that tomorrow we will have a Getting Started for Flow webinar, Spectral Flow. So I saw a lot of questions about Spectral, so you might want to attend this one on Wednesday. And then for those of you who deal with cell cycle DNA analysis, we have a webinar on that one on Thursday. We have a new website. You might see the skin here. If you have if you have never tried FCS Express and this was just you attended this webinar to because you were curious, feel free to download the demo. Just go to our website and download the free demo. You can see here free trial. And that's it. If you have any question, just send me an email or send an email to our support team. We are spread among different time zones, 5 different time zones. So any question you might have will be answered in 2-3 hours, no more. Okay. So I will stay here for a few more minutes if you want to write in any question.